Ah, the mighty Taylorcraft. Clarence Gilbert Taylor designed the B series here back in the late 30s, I believe. He basically designed it to be better than the J3. He designed the J2, and then Piper ended up buying out that line of aircraft from him, and he wanted to make a better plane than the J3, and so he designed the Taylorcraft. These things they're nice planes. It was my dad's favorite plane when I was growing up. He never had one, but he always loved them. And they're fast and, well, relatively speaking, and they handle nice. So today we're going to take a good look at this one. This is a 1946 BC-12D, and we're going to kind of compare it to the Super Chief, my 1941 Aeronca. We're going to look at kind of the specs, kind of some side-by-side stuff. We're going to talk about a few things that I kind of like better about the Taylorcraft and a few things that aren't quite as nice as on the Aeronca. And then we're going to go fly them. We're going to we'll do a drag race at the end and see which one's faster.
My name is Jared White. Join me as we explore Northern California and beyond, enjoying the somewhat more affordable side of general aviation.
Chief throwing.
All right, so first of all, let's take a look at the specs between the Chief and the Taylorcraft. Wingspan, 36 feet on the Chief, and the Taylorcraft, actually, I measured it with Pepper, and it came out about 36.5 feet, so a little bit wider wingspan. And then the wing chord, look at this, 63.5 inches on the Taylorcraft compared to 57.5 on the Chief. So the Taylorcraft has a significantly bigger wing. You come down, look at the wing area, 193 square feet of wing on the Taylorcraft compared to the Aeronca's 172. And these are my measurements, so they could be off by a few feet. I didn't get real precise in factoring the wingtip and the bow and whatnot. And these, my wing area measurement includes the fuselage area. I think because most manufacturers, that's just the way they measure wing area. So let's look at the weights on the old Taylorcraft. Empty weight of 798 pounds compared to the empty weight on the Chief of 810 pounds. Gross weight on the Taylorcraft is 1,200 pounds compared to gross weight on the Chief of 1,250 pounds. So that gives the Chief, when we look at our useful loads, another 38 pounds of useful load, which is pretty significant, especially on these planes where you're, bumping up against gross weight kind of whenever you load somebody in there. Let's look at the cockpit dimensions. The shoulder width, 40 inches compared to 41 inches on the Chief. The Chief does feel a little bit wider. From the seat back to the pedals, 41.5 inches in this one, and 43 inches in the Chief. The Chief has a slidable seat, and I'm not sure if this one does. The seat bottom to the headliner is about the same, so you got about the same amount of headroom, which is enough for me. I'm a 6-foot guy, and I can fit, headroom wise, I can fit just fine. Baggage, 50 pounds of baggage on the Taylorcraft, 70 pounds on the Super Chief. So if you have the gross weight, or if you have the useful load, you can put 70 pounds behind the seat in the Super Chief. The fuel situation is where the Taylorcraft really starts to shine. 24 gallons of fuel. It's got 2 wing tanks at 6 gallons apiece and a header tank at 12 gallons, where the Super Chief only calls 17 gallons of fuel in the front tank. We got a chopper coming in. All right, we're back. So finishing off my list here, this has the A75 Continental, which is I believe it's 170 cubic inches, where my Chief has the C85, which comes in at 190 cubic inches. The C85 is really a stronger engine than the A75, not just in horsepower, but also in torque. And my Chief feels like it seems like it climbs quite a bit better than the Taylorcraft, but I haven't flown the Taylorcraft yet, so we're gonna take a look at just a few of the things on the Taylorcraft that are that I like a little bit better structurally than the Chief. So if you do a quick walk around on this thing, one of the first things you'll notice is that there's no exposed aileron hardware. It's all built into the wing, which kind of streamlines it, makes it a little faster, I think. This old girl's got some old covering, but it's still pretty good. Let's see if we keep walking around. The tail construction is pretty similar. These tail wires are thinner than on the Chief. The Chief has beefier ones. I don't know if that really makes a difference, but it's noticeable. It's something to think about. The trim tab on the Taylorcraft is like twice the size of the Chief, which makes me happy, because the trim tab on my Chief is just not as big as I want it to be. There's something rolling around in there. This has just a little tail wheel on it. If you're beating it up on the gravel bars, it'd be nice to have a little bigger tail wheel, or a beefier one. This airplane, I think it spent some time down at Ranchero, because I saw a picture of it down there at Ranchero last time I was down there. The tails, they're about the same size as the Chief. No flaps, of course. Let's take a look inside. Nice simple cockpit. Nothing you need, nothing you don't. There's definitely, there's more stuff in front of your view than in the Chief. The Chief has the sidebars, but it doesn't have these bars right here in the middle. I bet you could clamp your cameras and iPads and GoPros onto there if you wanted to, though. Get this thing up to modern specs. One thing I don't like about the Taylorcraft are these heel brakes. For whatever reason, these do not work nearly as well as the brakes in the Chief. The Chief brakes, have that little paddle that attaches to the pedal, and so it's a lot easier to steer while you're applying the brakes. Where this, you kind of got to get your feet going out like that, and it just gets funky. And these are just not very effective at all. It's possible that the brake pads and everything needs to be gone through, but I don't know. So you can see right back into the fuselage on this guy. Looks pretty nice back there. Nice little baggage area where you can throw some stuff. It has bungees where the Chief has the oleos. I think they're both fine methods of suspension. I'm curious to fly this one though and see how it wheel lands, because I'm hoping that it's going to wheel land a little nicer than the Chief. It also, it has a symmetrical airfoil, where the Chief is kind of an older flat bottom airfoil. So the Chief wing probably generates a little more lift than this wing, but this wing is bigger. So I don't know. We'll see how they fly. All right, it's time for the drag race. My brother's in the Super Chief, and I'm hopping in the T-cart. Let's see how this thing flies. We're gonna do a couple laps around the pattern so that we can familiarize ourselves with our machines before we attempt the drag race. It's always strange seeing somebody else fly your beloved craft. All right, let me see if I can get this old girl running. She usually starts super easy. Mags on both. Throttle right about there. Gloves. I don't know how you're supposed to get into this yet. All right, we're filming. It's time for a drag race. All right, we got the old tail draggers back tied down and in the hangar where they belong. That was a lot of fun flying the Taylorcraft. The Super Chief definitely pulls harder and beat it off the line. I was surprised. I probably could have climbed a little bit steeper in the Taylorcraft, but then I would have lost speed. So I just kind of climbed out at what felt like about right about a VY climb. But that was a lot of fun. Make sure if you decide to, take off on the same runway with a friend that you definitely brief the plan and are familiar with some formation flying skills. Flying the two aircraft kind of back to back, they really handle pretty similar. Both have big wings and they're both pretty docile on the controls. You got to use a lot of rudder when you want to turn. As far as top end speed, we did do a kind of a cruise speed test, and they're right about the same speed. I think the Chief was a little bit faster. I was just starting to pull up on the Taylorcraft a little bit when we did our kind of cruise test, but I think the Taylorcraft airframe probably is a little bit sleeker than the Chief. And the Taylorcraft with a 85 horsepower and a little bit faster prop probably would outrun the Chief pretty easily. I also have the bigger wheels on the Chief, so that adds a little bit of drag. I've updated my chart here with a few new numbers that I wanted to keep track of. And the first one is the wing thickness. I realized it's hard to really find anywhere online. It's hard to find the thickness of the wings on these old planes. And so I measured them, kind of using some primitive methods, but I got a pretty close measurement here. And the wing on the Aeronca is a little bit thinner by like a quarter of an inch than the Taylorcraft. But eventually I'd like to measure the wings on the later model Aeroncas, like the Champs and the Chiefs and also the Cubs, and just see how thick their wings are, because the wing thickness can affect the overall drag of your airplane quite a bit and affect your performance. The other thing on the Chief and the Taylorcraft that was a big difference that I didn't really realize until I was trying to climb into the Taylorcraft was the size of the doors, which brings up another graphic that I made here. And it's impressive how much wider the door on the Chief is. The width on the Chief door is 30 inches compared to 25.5 inches on the Taylorcraft. And also the placement of the wing strut, which you can see right there. On the Chief, the wing strut is the mounting point for the wing strut at the fuselage is farther forward, and so it gives you a lot more room to kind of swing your legs in. Where on the Taylorcraft, that strut is kind of right where your legs want to be when you're trying to swing them into the cockpit. So, the Taylorcraft's not impossible to get into, but when I'm an old man, I'm going to enjoy flying the Chief around because I'll be able to get my legs into it a little bit easier. The other thing I really noticed flying both aircraft was the different feeling of the landing gear. The Chief has those oleo struts, and they're pretty they're pretty rocky. No matter where they're at, whether you're landing or taxiing, you can always feel those struts kind of flexing a little bit. And even at slow speeds, you can crank the ailerons, and you'll feel it kind of moving your wings, and so you'll kind of know. Especially if you're working in a crosswind or something like that, you get a lot of feedback. You can really feel what the airplane's doing. Where with the Taylorcraft, with those bungee cord landing gear, when the bungees are tight, when the gear's all the way up, it's a much tighter feel, and you can't kind of feel your ailerons rocking the wings as much on the Taylorcraft. And I imagine that once you kind of get used to the Taylorcraft, you could probably feel it a little better. I only have a couple hours in it. And it definitely felt a lot more planted on the pavement, but I didn't get that feedback that I'm used to getting in the Chief, because this thing's so kind of wonky on the gear. One nice thing about the Taylorcraft is I think most of them all share the same type certificate. So even if you end up with a pre-war Taylorcraft or a later one, I'm pretty sure they all use the same type certificate, which means there's a little more commonality between all the Taylorcrafts out there. and there are some STCs and things you can do to them that you don't really get with the pre-war Chiefs. There aren't a lot of these pre-war Chiefs out there, and so you're kind of stuck with what you got. As far as the gross weight on the Taylorcraft, the later models do have higher gross weights, but there are some structural differences that they have. So, make sure you kind of know your airplane and know whatever. If you go out to buy one, make sure you know kind of how it's set up and what the gross weight is. All right, that's about it for this episode. I enjoyed flying the Taylorcraft around a little bit. For me personally, I would happily fly, the Chief or that Taylorcraft. They're both great old tail draggers, and if you find one that's in decent shape and for a price you can afford, then I highly recommend picking one up because they're a lot of fun. They're not. There are some difficulties with them, like having to hand start them and have a radio and getting all that figured out. But once you kind of get one and get into the routine and kind of get your system figured out, it's not too bad. I think next on the trusty aeronaut schedule is I'd like to go down to see Grasshopper John, who he sold his Grasshopper, but he now has a Champ, and we might do a little side-by-side comparison between the later post-war Champ and the pre-war Chief. His Champ has a 85 horsepower as well, and we might even try to do like a slow drag of some sort. I'm not sure, but it should be fun. Thanks for watching, folks. Please consider liking and hyping my videos if you see the hype button. And also subscribe up here and check out one of my other videos right here. I'll see you on the next one. So long.